Hello viewers from wherever you're watching us from. You're watching QTV, the Gambia's first private TV station, and we are broadcasting from our studios here on Kairaba Avenue, just right behind the Kuselman building. I'm your host, Aliou Cisse, and we are back for another edition of your weekly State of Affairs program where we discuss current issues. Well, next Friday, the Gambia's Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs, Sidi Keita, is going to table before parliamentarians the estimates of the 2024 budget, which actually determines the amount of revenue and expenditure that the government expects to generate and spend on behalf of the Gambian people between 1st January and 31st December 2024. It's a constitutional requirement that the budget must be presented to National Assembly members who must endorse or approve the budget to give the government the green light to do any expenditure. And joining me today to discuss these and other issues relating to the budget, the expectations, and what should be the priority areas as far as the 2024 budget are concerned, I have in the studio Honorable Alaji Mbow of Upper Salem constituency, who is also the chair of the Education, Training and ICT Committee of the National Assembly and the vice chair of the Finance and Public Accounts Committee. Honorable Mbow, good to have you on the program.
Oh, thank you for having me on your show.
Also in the studio, I have Honorable Lamin Sane, who is the National Assembly member for Brikama North constituency, Brikama South rather, Brikama South constituency. He is the chair of the Standing Committee on public enterprise actually, and also a member of the Agriculture and Rural Development Committee, Public Petition, Human Rights and Constitutional Matters, and Foreign Affairs Committee. Honorable Sane, good to have you on the program.
You're welcome, Aliou. Thank you so much.
Well, I will just start, with this question. We'll go to both of you. We certainly know, the executive submits the budget estimate to the National Assembly, but are parliamentarians really consulted in the preparation, the both of you?
Thank you so much, Aliou. I think this is a very important question. As far as the budget is concerned, there is a settled practice. Normally, the finance minister is mandated to make a forecast from 1st January to 31st December. How much are we expecting as a revenue? If that is established, they will work on creating a ceiling for every ministries. Thank God this time we have 21 ministries instead of 19. That came since 2023. Yes. So these 21 ministries, agencies and their department will go to the Ministry of Finance for a budget bilateral. After working on that, they agree everything. From there, the finance minister will come and table this on their behalf to the National Assembly for our scrutiny and possible approval. So normally it's one that is very, very, very hectic, because we have to look at it in a different dimension. It's a very important working tool, and this is where the status of the Gambia is put on in terms of development, in terms of everything. Because this is the national cake that must be focused. So, but there is one thing that we definitely having a problem with. You look at the duration that is given for us, the day of tabling and the approval, 14 days.
That's something that we will actually get into, because it's important. I know a private member's bill was tabled by Honorable Mbow relating to that. Honorable Mbow, the involvement of the National Assembly members in the preparation of the budget. Some people will even ask, the importance of budget participatory, perhaps even having the members of the civil society and even the media to be part of the budget preparatory.
Yes, I think, and thank you, Ali, for having me on your show once again. Now, when you look at the budget cycle, actually it starts from the preparation process, which is actually handled by the executive, being led by the Minister of Finance. And during the process, that's why it makes consultations, across the, across government institutions, and also with the public as well. I'm aware that sometimes they actually go up country, meet in the governor's office, and then that's why they have a lot of discussion. But prior to that also, they have something they prepare, which tells them exactly how the economic outlook is going to be like for next year. That is the, they call it MTF. And from there, they can easily tell how much they expect in terms of revenue, and then they're going to actually from there they create something they call like a budget ceiling, which they actually share with all the institutions. Now, normally members of parliament actually are not engaged on, are not involved on those, except at their own budget. With our own budget, then you know we have to do that. Yeah. But this is actually to a large extent meant for the public, that's public consultation, and also with the ministries, department, agencies. But the members of parliament actually are not involved. However, at the end of the day, when they compile everything, that's exactly when they come to the parliament. So essentially, when you look at it, it's like you don't want to be a player, also a referee at the same time, because at the end of the compilation, everything comes back to the parliament, and that's where the parliamentarians actually do their work based on the constitutional requirements. So right now, as we speak, you're going to see that the cycle starts from the preparation process, which actually gives them an idea how the economic outlook is going to be like for next year, and they'll be able to determine that how much revenue they expect to get, and from there they create the ceilings for each ministries, department, agencies, you know, including the National Assembly, the judiciary, and also the IAC, even though they do not control, you know, what kind of amount they put in their budgets, but they know behind the scenes like, what kind of figure to expect. So the preparation process, actually, the National Assembly is not that much involved in it, because of this an executive prerogative that they prepare and then bring it to the parliament through the Minister of Finance.
And Honorable, looking at the budget cycle here, I mean, he talks about the preparation, but in terms of the approach, I mean, what's your take?
I think the approach, there is an issue here, because even if you look at the entire budget cycle, which I believe the parliament should have a degree of representation, because parliament represents people. And sometimes the manner in which it is done, people will not be captured, especially engagement. But the budget has to be citizen friendly. Yeah. And each and every parliamentarian represent an integral component of that, the citizenry. So if you look at it right now, it's only a ready-made appropriation that is tabled before us. And if you look at the process, we have a very limited time to actually impact positively on it. And that is something where I have an issue. If you look at it sometimes, the interesting part of it, like after this retreat, there is going to be a bilateral between individual committees and the ministries. So sometimes the ministries will tell you, this is what we submit, and there is serious cutting. And that is a problem. If you sit with them, they will be crying, everybody will be crying. We have a limited budget. We approve 100%, but they only give us 40%. So this is a problem. And that is because of the erratic nature of our cake. The cake is very erratic in such a way that it's a problem. And the other aspect, Ali, that I am very much worried, I keep on doubting how realistic is our budget. And that's a major problem. Sometimes, after making the forecast, from 1st January, 31st December, this is what we are expecting. Though budget is a tool, it's a working tool. It cannot be 100% perfect. But interestingly, you must meet the threshold. Because what is happening, these 21 ministries, you engage with them. What has been approved is what they are going to implement. And we expect every ministry to have an annual activity plan. January, what do you want to implement in terms of development? So you'll be surprised sometimes. Ministry X can have 800 million. At the end of the fiscal year, they end up having only 400 million. So that shows that there is something fundamentally wrong. And the important part of it, if you look at our budget, the revenue component, that is tax and non-tax revenue, I think that is the only area that you, for me, as far as I'm concerned, that I can be assured is 100% accurate in terms of, because the target is always met. But when you come to the budget support, the grant component, this is where we have a problem. Sometimes there could be conditions that you might not meet, and they are not forthcoming. Currently, as far as I am speaking, I sent in parliamentary question since the June session, but the finance minister was not available to give us a budget execution about how much was attained from the tax and non-tax revenue, the project grant, and even below the line item. That is the deficits. Since we came to the parliament from the 5th up to the 6th legislature, we always run at a budget deficit.
Honorable, do you agree with Honorable Sane that he's doubting how realistic our budget is?
Well, you know, sometimes you can actually question that. But like he said earlier, a budget is just a planning tool. It's not like cast in stone, and it's bound to change along the lines.
It's a projection.
It's a projection, yeah. And depending on like what is actually coming in, and then also the priorities of the various ministries. You know when monies actually come. For example, when you look at the Gambia itself, let's go back to just 3-4 years back. You look at the revenue that's actually coming into the country. In terms of what the government actually made on their own, that is the tax revenue and non-tax revenue. You are looking at almost like about 19.8 billion in total revenue. But when you look at that actual amount, and also what's coming from the budget support and also what's coming from the project grants, you're going to see that the project grants and the budget support actually is even higher than actually what the government actually making on their own. You fast forward, you go to 2021, you're going to see the same trend where the revenue that actually is coming from the government on their own in terms of the tax and non-tax actually is still below what we expect to get from the project grants and also from the budget support, which is a big cause for concern. But fast forward in 2023, you're going to see that now the trend actually has changed a little bit. Now it's almost like 50-50, where the government actually owned, which is the tax revenue and non-tax revenue, compared to the project grants and then the budget support is almost like equal, 50-50. And I think that's the trend the budget, as far as the revenue is concerned, needs to go. We cannot actually hinge our development on somebody actually giving us money. That needs to change. And that's why I think it's also important for the Minister of Finance to find ways and means to ensure that revenue leakages are actually closed. When that actually happens, we try to go in to get more revenue. You need to decentralize just to ensure that we have various revenue sources. And when that actually happens, you're going to see that the revenue aspect that's coming from the government actually going to go up. So when that trajectory actually go up, you're going to see that now we'll be able to control the budget properly. Because without that, you cannot control what somebody's going to give you. You can only control what is in your hands. You can only control what you actually earn as a country. But if somebody is giving you, you cannot actually control that.
There's no guarantee.
Exactly, there's no guarantee. And that's the reason why sometimes you're going to see that you may not have a budget support in a particular year, or the amount that you expect you don't get. Or a grant for a program grant that's actually happening in the ministries, education, health, etc., etc. They do not actually come on time. So those ones will be really very difficult to predict when, because of there are strings attached that you need to do A, B, C, and D to be able to get this actual amount. So the shortest thing is for government to ensure that we put in place where we actually increase our total revenue, basic tax and non-tax revenue, so that we are actually sure that this one is ours, this one will be able to spend the way we want, and that's going to actually help in prediction. Otherwise, it's going to be really very difficult to manage well when most of the revenue that you actually get is going to come from somebody.
Honorable, what's your view? How do we deal with this
situation? I tend to differ with Mbo a bit, because 2021 and 2022, it is crystal clear that the budget support are not forthcoming. In fact, the 2022 budget has been revised, because, in fact, the minister came that this is not possible. The budget is not realistic. We have to revise the budget in 2022.
Could it be because of the pandemic and the
in fact, they were mentioning those things. Okay. But the intended budget support for 2021 and 2022 did not come at all. And this was a major constraint. And I told you, I asked this question since the June session, but the finance minister was not available in order to come and respond, because we need to see the budget execution, whether actually we are on track in meeting the budget support. And they form a central part of our development. Because like all the budget is based on these issues. If they are not forthcoming, what is going to happen? What the GRA collect as tax and non-tax revenue, that is what is going to be distributed. You requested for 1 million in January. You are only giving 600,000.
And their target this year is 15 billion.
Yeah.
The Gambia Revenue Authority.
Yes.
There are two things there.
Yeah. Okay. No, there are two things there. Like the GRA, what they are collecting, the tax revenue, they're targeting 15 billion, because last year it was 13.9. The non-tax is 2.9. So cumulatively, they will give you this 17. But if this year is 15, gradually, because I think there is something fundamentally wrong with our domestic revenue mobilization. But that also, if people will live up to expectations by complying in paying those revenue, people have to see the impact. But they have to go in tandem. What I am giving, it is given to me in the other way around, in terms of amenities and all those stuff. But if they are not coming, you find it difficult for people to comply.
And
also of digitalization. The issue of digitalization. Okay. I know the GRA is going for Asikuda plus. And that is also really helping. But if you look at it technically, but does it exhaust all the avenue? Because I think we should be going in that dimension. if this country can be on a firm footing. The domestic revenue mobilization should be a way out. But let's first identify our potential revenues and give them a unique identification. By a click of button, I will know whether I will comply or not. But without which we have a problem.
I'm seeing you nodding in disagreement.
Yes, actually.
Or you have a different view.
Actually, he knows. That's exactly one area that actually have been really very particular in the, in the parliament about the need for us to really look at the domestic resource mobilization. For me, I'm of the firm belief that we must not actually hinge our development on somebody actually giving us something handout. It will never work. And that's the reason why I said if we want to control really our economy and also our direction in terms of economic development, we need to strategize to ensure that our domestic resource mobilization actually is apt and also we are able to get the maximum revenues. Now to do that also, people must be honest. The average person doesn't want to pay taxes, for example. So only when the GRA actually forces or they try to close the loopholes. So one, I think it's about people. People actually must be honest. They must pay their taxes because of this is a tax-based economy. And if taxes are actually not paid or they are not paid on time, you're going to say the government actually will have an issue, like any other country.
But do you think if people are not paying tax, GRA will be able to, mobilize such revenue?
No, I'm talking about
their targets.
No, what I'm referring to is like they're supposed to pay what they're supposed to pay and pay on time.
Okay.
I know Mbo is supposed to pay $1 million, and I take time 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months, and then I go and pay. That is not actually ideal. Okay. When the payment is due, go and make the payment. And also, we must actually stop the shortcuts that we're actually having. And I think now with what is actually happening with GRA, they're trying to digitalize their system. Actually, I think it's actually helping, and I think it's a step in the right direction. And that's the reason why I told you earlier, when you compare the revenue actually that's coming to the government in 2018 all the way to 2023, you're going to realize that actually there's an increase, particularly non-tax revenue. Actually, it's tripling almost year in, year out. Because if you look at it, like say 7 years ago, you are talking about tax revenue of getting almost 200 million every year. But now you are talking about $1 to $2 billion that actually are getting. So which means we are moving in the right direction, but people also must be able to go there and then do the right things, pay their taxes and pay it on time, so that GRA can be able to mobilize and government will be able to get the right fund. Now, in terms of budget execution, normally this Minister of Finance publish this on their websites, and that's actually going to tell you exactly what is actually happening. But our execution report for each ministry may not be the same thing in terms of percentage-wise. Why? Because of when you look at the priorities of government, within the ministry, actually, you may have the priorities, actually. You may see the Ministry of Health, for example. They may have a very priority thing that they need to do in a particular given month. So which means that when the government look at the cash allocation, Ministry of Finance, they said, you know what, this is the most important thing right now for the ministry. You're going to see that cash will be allocated to those areas. When you look at the parliament as well, you look at the Ministry of Basic Education, Higher Education. So you're going to see that the priority among the government, actually, it all depends. And also, it changes month by month. Even within the same ministry, you see priority actually may change. And that's the reason why they have the Public Finance Act, which gives them leeway where they can actually do environment because of the priorities may actually change. Like you said earlier, the budget actually is just a planning tool, and it's a plan, and it's not cast in stone, and it's going to change along the way. So when priorities actually change along the way, then that's the time you try to take resources from one envelope and you move it to another area. So you're going to see that overall, when you check with the ministry, you're going to see that, particularly in the fourth quarter, by the time the fourth quarter ends, you're going to see that the budget utilization, most of the ministers actually, I'm not all you in the 90s and etc. But when you check the first quarter, second quarter, you're going to see that you may see disparity because of the issue of priority in each of those ministries. You're going to see a disparity. For example, when you look at the Ministry of Transport, for example, one time, when ministry are actually in the 30-something%, they are around 80%. Why? Because they owe money to other, other contract that they have to pay. So you're going to see that at that particular moment or at that particular quarter, you're going to see that the Ministry of Transport, their budget utilization will be higher than any other institution. Likewise, that's happened. So you have priorities in a priority. So sometimes it cannot be the same, but towards the end of the fourth quarter, you're going to see that everybody is actually coming up. But when you do your cash request based on the plan that you submit, it doesn't mean that you're going to get everything at the same time, because we collect and then we pay. So sometimes also that's an issue. And the biggest thing actually, like we said, is to ensure that we mobilize more revenue so that we can actually get these ministries, departmental agencies money when they need it, not only towards the end of the year when most of these things actually, you can do anymore.
And Honorable, talking about issue of prioritization here, let's talk about the approach. I mean, in other countries, the budget is more like a bottom-top approach.
Exactly.
But sometimes other countries, it's more like top-bottom approach. Exactly. I mean, you decide for people, someone who lives in Basse, you want to decide for the person what is his priority. Perhaps you who's sitting under that AC, your priority might not be the same as someone who is in upper salon.
No, to be very much honest, you have hit the nail on the head. Because what is even happening, the priority aspect, there is a problem. Because when you come to the prioritization, who determines? Because already the country have a national development plan. And each ministry has its own blueprint. You want to address a fundamental problem. So the budget has to be speaking in that dimension. But if you look at the priority, like look at the type of loans and grants that are coming. I want to give a specific to these areas. You take a lot of loan. Look at it, the below the line item. There is 2.7 million, 2.7 million that is coming as a domestic borrowing. The sales of treasury bill and government security.
Is this the last budget?
This is 2023 budget.
Okay, 2023 budget. Okay.
Do you understand?
Right. Okay.
And what that is taken, you are allowing the commercial banks to enjoy this to 2.7 million on the detriment of the citizenry. So if you look at because the public, the commercial banks need to be public and private sector driven. But right now, even if you want to go there as a private citizen to take loan, the interest rates are very high. They demand collateral that you cannot even meet. You end up even losing your compounds. So it's no-go area. That's why everybody will say, let's go and establish a bank in the Gambia, because it's a money-making area. Because we keep on having this treasury bill. And the other issue that I wanted to talk about is the issue of the investment into the productive sector. Like, interestingly, let me use agriculture, for example. Agriculture, if you look at the 2023 budget,
Yes.
from GLF, is 722 million. It's only 722 million from GLF component. And out of this, 634 is recurrent. It's only 88 for development. So all the funds that are coming, if you look at the total, everybody, every aspect, loan, grant, and GLF, Agric has about 3.751 billion.
And that's like 7.95%
Exactly.
of the budget.
Which is coming, which is directly coming from donors. Government go and contract loans and grants on behalf of Gambians. And you will be surprised this is implemented outside the mainstream agriculture. And that is why there is this issue of secondment. People will retire from
From government to
the projects.
Yeah.
When the project phase out, they come
back.
So these are problems. And this is monitored by Central Project Coordinating Unit. And this will have a problem. For example, roots. The firm that even does the recruitment was outside the country, Senegal. They did the recruitment. But interestingly, why is government not involved in the designing? So the project, the operational cost and the target beneficiary, there could be a balance.
That's the bottom-up approach.
Because this is where this is where we have a problem.
Yeah.
Because what happened? This project will phase out. You cannot even see their footprint. So these are problems, and the same Gambians are going to pay this thing.
And that's the reason why I asked, how are the parliamentarians involved? Because you represent the people. You know what the concerns of your people are. You know what their priorities are.
In fact, that is why. But thank God he brought that private member bill. We'll have that opportunity because you will go back to your people and make some discussion.
The most law.
Exactly.
The most law.
Yeah, in fact, it's very important.
Yeah.
But one thing we need to understand, even if you are taking a loan, this is given to the government to invest on behalf of the Gambians. But if we are not putting into the productive sector, in order to liquid our own economy, you find it difficult to sustain. Because you are only collecting money, and that's why the issue of prioritization comes into play. And we have this problem. Like you look at it, the other sector, you go to his with education. Yeah. There are a lot of projects attached. So if your development is going to be championed by outsiders, you have a problem. I vividly remember 2 months ago, ADB were here on an appraisal mission. That by June, July, they need to give about $7 million to the government as budget support. But they were looking at whether the anti-corruption bill is passed. I told them it's before us at the committee of consideration. And they were very much interested about PFM. They are very much interested. So these are the conditions they attach before you get these things.
That's the public finance management.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're looking at, and also the one that we passed, the procurement. The procurement bill that we passed, we enacted. There was something that they queried. I thought, in fact, you should have advanced this thing to the parliament so that we can take it up before tabling before us.
Honorable?
Yes. You know, he mentioned something very interesting about the treasury bills. You know, when you run a deficit, for example, the budget of the Gambia, you run a deficit, meaning your revenue actually is not enough to cover all the expenditure you want to make in a particular given year, which means you run a deficit.
That has been the trend.
Yeah, that has been.
Exactly. Our revenue and what we spend.
Exactly.
It's always
we have appetite of spending.
It's been like that for quite a long time. Now, what happens when you have that deficit now, the question is how do you finance it? Do you finance it domestically or do you finance it also international, debt? And that's exactly where you may have to do a balanced act. Now, he did mention about the commercial banks in here. Now, we know these are not NGOs, they are here to make money. But the biggest issue we have here is like what actually makes the interest rate actually go up when you want to take a loan at the bank. Now, that is not only the government appetite that actually makes them actually go up, but we must also understand that when you operate a commercial bank, any other financial institution, there is something they call the credit reserve ratio. This is an amount of money that is taken from a percentage of the deposits that actually left at the level of the central bank. Those ones you cannot give out as a loan or overdraft. So you're going to see that the cost of funds for those commercial banks or those finance institutions, of course, it's going to be high because an amount actually is put aside because you cannot give out, which means you have a small amount that is actually left. So now the government actually has to balance whether they use the domestic market to be able to bridge that gap in the deficit, or they have to use the international market. Sometimes it depends on really what it is, the current situation. For example, right now when we have issues with forex, of course, it's better to go and get foreign loans so that they can actually help to close that gap because of our balance of payment actually is an issue. So which means at any particular time it depends also on the needs of the government and where you take domestic or you take international loans. So it has an effect also generally because if you go domestic, essentially you are competing with the private sector to be able to take money from the commercial banks. But also if you leave it alone like that, and that means you're going to open up for more revenue to be given to be able to give into those people. Now the other side is to do it international, and that's exactly where sometimes the government actually has to balance it act. Which one is better? And to do that also you have to also ensure that you understand the interest rate that the government actually is going to pay. Because when you take a loan, domestic or international, there's bound to be interest payment. So you have to balance those two to see which one is better for you in terms of your economy or in terms of your population, etc., etc. So those ones become important.
And now we have established what the issues are. Like I said, the minister is going to table the estimate budget on Friday.
Yes.
What should be the priority areas? And why? To both of you.
To be very much honest, Ali, I think this is a very important one. Though I just want to bring in about the trend in which we've been dealing with the domestic borrowing. Okay. So I'm looking at even 2022, where we have borrowed over 2.6 billion. Okay. So the trend has been going on, but the importance of the budget that is going to be tabled before us, I think, to be very much honest, the only way out for this country, we have to start and grow what we are going to eat. Our food should not be given outside, and that's very, very fundamental. So the agri-sub sector has to come to life. Because if you look at it, this is where we have a problem. Gambia is part of the countries that have signed the Maputo Declaration. Yeah, that is saying 10% should go to agriculture. But if you look at the trend in which agri is declining, and in fact, what is happening? If you go to the budget and expenditure column, under the livestock, we are this 600 million that they are putting there is coming from livestock. So which means agri is already sponsoring what they're going to consume within a physical year. So the other one that is coming in the form of, I have a problem with that. And the other issue, Gambia from Katon to Guyana is 11,295 square kilometers in length, divided by the river on both sides. Yes, we have convectional type of rainfall. That is gradually erratic, simply because it's going down because we have serious deforestation because of the erratic nature of our rainfall. The rainfall pattern keep on changing but from Kaur up to the tail end of URR, it's all fresh water. You only need it for tidal and pump irrigation to grow what we're going to eat. But you go to Jahale Pachar, you'll be surprised. How much do we spend annually to import rice into this country?
It's quite
and sometimes
that question, you will buttress more on that when we come back. We're just going for a short break, and when we return, discussion continues. Do stay tuned.
depuis bi la radiyallahu anhu defee njëlbeeni nooda bi nooda bokk ci suñ diine ak suñ dundin dañoo nooda ci jàkka yi julli amut borom alel bi ku ñàkka ki ñépp julli juróomi julli yépp bés bu ne léegi Qcell di leen xëccoo nooda competition ñu ngi ko ooye azan competition pour rek puugaro suñ gom-gom bennoo oyofal xol yi ci rafetaay yi loolu di nooda wonel sa cofeel boo am ci sa gom-gom sabat te itam sa pas-pas nga bokka si HOB pour seet ndax di nga gagné looy def yomb na defal benn vidéo boo xam ne yaa nge nooda nga yónnee ko si nomba bi 3373 555 3373 555 dinañ seet bu nekkee ne sa nooda bi jaar na yoon dinañ la oo pour nga bokka si ñooñu ñi xëccoo fii si QTV 2023 National Azan Competition bi xoli yëpp nekk benn oo benn ci benn watu ñu leen indi lii mooy QCell suñu bos.
Hello viewers, welcome back from that short break. You're watching QTV, the Gambia's first private TV station, and we are broadcasting from our studios here on Kairaba Avenue. My name is Aliou Cisse, and this is your weekly State of Affairs program. My guests this week are Honorable Lamin J. Sane, Brikama South constituency, and Honorable Olajimbo of Upper Salem. Well, Honorable, you were just trying to buttress, the issues we have when it comes to the agriculture sector. Yet 7.9% is allocated to the sector.
Yeah, in fact, this is where agriculture, to be very much honest with you, I think it should have been a way out if we are very careful and serious what we are doing. Because you look at how much we spend in only importing rice in this country. And as a country, fine, we are part of a continental bloc, and there is Agenda 2063. And the protocol is a movement of services, goods, and within member states. But we have to protect our own industries. Like in the the revenue component in the budget that is coming from for agriculture is coming from livestock. But I haven't seen anything that the crop is producing. And on annual basis, like you put in on 500 million. This is launched under centralized service. 300 goes for procurement of fertilizer, and 200 procurement of certified seeds. And the GGC has the capacity to buy up to 30,000 metric tons. And this is exported. There is a machine that will test all the aflatoxin. They produce oil, not even for us. We only go for an inferior type. So these are issues. This is sent outside. How much is generated? Is this coming back? Despite the GGC is a state-owned enterprise. But nonetheless, they are not captured, except this 2023 budget, where we have 360 million that is coming as dividend.
Before I bring Honorable,
yes,
are you suggesting that it is also opening to allow the private sector? The
private sector need to come.
Who wants to invest especially in rice production? Exactly.
Look at this guy, Maro Farm in Jahali Pachal. If we have 3 of that kind, they should be able to feed the nation. But they has to partner with the government. And that is why I even asked the Honorable Minister, how many citizens have you engaged in terms of PPP in order to produce rice in this country?
Even the Koreans are interested in investing in rice production in this country.
The French, the rice value chain, they are coming in all aspects. But the impact, because the seriousness is not there. When Honorable Fabre was there, she has even started a stepping stone towards that dimension. But the trend in which it is going now is declining. And we have a problem with this. Your food that you consume should come. And again, the biggest problem, how do we link our production to market? How do we process? Like all over the country, vegetable gardens can be grown in every area. Come to Birkama by 4 a.m., the market is jam-packed. You have the farmers, they are going to be there with their produce from 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. And interestingly, they will be only at the mercy of the middlemen, who will not even pay them. And it's very difficult to till the soil. Why can we allow our own produce, even if they are not of quality? Let's produce seeds that are of standard, that can supply our industries, rather than depending on, because if you look at the level of the Senegalese goods that are coming, I am bothered at 3 different fronts with the Republic of Senegal. I know the goods that are coming into our country. So these are issues. If we work on the agricultural subsector, engage our youths in a PPP format, private sector come on board, this will minimize the backward syndrome, and we'll have the food on our table. We will not spend much in importing. And let's put tentative embargo on the importation of rice so that we produce. So these are the things that we are looking at. Because we can go in for pump irrigation, we can go in for tidal irrigation, and the fresh water is there. Nobody is utilizing it.
Yes, I think for me, this one particular area that we've been talking about as a country, in the independence, that is about agriculture. Yes. But it seems we are still not turning the corner.
Exactly.
And I think something fundamental actually must be done to ensure that we correct this.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to use agriculture only for subsistence, we are not going to get anywhere.
Exactly.
And I think we need to go to the next level is to commercialize. Commercializing agriculture is going to help us a lot in terms of actually even uplifting the lives of the people.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to produce, but I mean, you go just across the border, you import almost anything, carrots, onions, potatoes, etc., etc. I mean, we have a problem. So what do we need to do? How do we engage the private sector to be able to be in the agriculture? What do we need to do as a government? You know, agriculture is something that when you want to do farming, the financial industry also is not really very friendly in terms of agriculture, because again, you look at you give out loans. What are you going to use the loan for? Agriculture, they are not really very forthcoming in the area of agriculture. And this is exactly where I agree that the government actually needs to come in and see how do we mobilize ourselves, work with the private sector to be able to create something that we call the model farms, etc., etc. Now, remember the Songhai
aside from
initiative.
agriculture,
Yeah.
what other sector do you think should be prioritized in the next in 2024 budget?
Well, I think the sector is education, because when you look at education, actually, it's almost everywhere. Now, when you look at education, actually, they develop the health sector. When you look at education, they develop the agriculture sector. You look at education, they develop almost every other sector. So I think education itself, something we need to perhaps reset the button, but we need to really ensure that the teachers are provided with learning and teaching material. And above all, you look at exactly their living conditions. If the teacher actually is not very comfortable at the home, when that is going to have an impact in the classrooms. So we need to look at our classroom sizes. We need to look at the way teachers actually are encouraged to be in the classroom. We also need to look at our curriculum above all. You know, we have a curriculum that we need to find whether it's in line with our development aspirations. We need to look at our curriculum from the primary school level to the senior secondary level over to the university level. You know, we have a country to build, and we have a continent also to build. So which means our aspiration also must match with what we teach in our schools, whether it's in the private, in the primary, or in the secondary, or in the university level. We have to align them.
But from last year's budget, we are seeing 10.15%. That's almost like over $3 billion was allocated to the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education.
But because they employ the most.
And now we are saying we saw the Ministry of Higher Education just 2.4% of the budget.
Yes, because
and
what
talking
happens
about skills and all those.
Yeah, you see, when you look at the MOPSI actually, this is a kind of sector that any village you go to or any corner you go to in this country, they have somebody there. So if you look at employment, actually they are the one that's employing the most. So if you look at the teachers that we actually have across the country, so you're going to see that amount of money that you actually see, most of it actually is recurrent. So it's not like something that's going to go to develop the education sector. And that's where we have a problem. We must invest more into the development aspect of our education, not only on the recurrent expenditure that we actually have as a government. So I think, for me, we need to critically look at the development side of the education sector, be it at the MOPSI level or be it at the MOHAS level. We really look at our development. Because you look at the budget, you say 3-point-something billion for MOPSI, but 90% plus it actually is going to pay for people's salaries, and some recurrent expenditure. So which means there's a small amount that's actually left for development of the education sector. So I think that's one we really need to look at, because when the education sector is developed, the health sector is going to also develop, because there's a direct correlation. And on top of that, also other sectors also going to come in, because education is key. And above all, we need to really calibrate our curriculum to ensure that it matches really our development aspiration for this country.
I think these three areas, agriculture, education, and health, these are the circle that should form our own development, which is very, very important. And one thing we need to look at it, I concord with him. In fact, in the teaching field, we have a lot of issues. The curriculum, in fact, I've been saying this thing. There's one thing that is very missing in our curriculum since the British left here. The issue of bringing constitutional education, what we call civic education, is very, very key. People will go up to their masters, they don't know what is entailed in our book. Yeah. And for us to have a vibrant civil society, they must know their do and their don't, which is very, very important. And you cannot hold a government accountable if you don't know what are entailed there. So we have to look at it. The issue of nationalism comes into play. It has to be in our curriculum, so people can love our country. But that is very, very absent. And the other issue that also comes from, they have the largest following in terms of starving. But we have a general problem in the country. The cost of living and source of income does not match. And it's a problem. Sometimes people voluntarily comes in, they are job seekers, but they don't have passion for the job. This is a problem. And how do we look at it? We have to conduct a market survey to look at daily cost of living. How much do you buy a bag of rice? Your daily fees money, tuition fee of your student, electricity bill, water. Factor these things and structure this salary that will commensurate with the reality in terms of source and the cost. And if you do that, this sector will be very vibrant. They consume a lot of money. And the other aspect, because if you want people to have good education, the health has to be ascertained, and there should be a balanced diet for you to acquire that health. In order to be matured here and the entire body, to be able to catch up with things very quickly.
And you talk about the issue of the inflation. As at September this year, the inflation was 18.5%.
Exactly.
How do we use the budget to address inflation?
I think this is a very important question.
Yeah.
Honorable.
Yes, I think one of the answers actually he gave earlier. You see, if you want to import everything that we do, from food, from clothing, from almost anything in life, in the Gambia we have to import, we're going to have an issue with inflation. Because we're going to have to need foreign currency to be able to do that. And again, you're going to see that our dollar only stops in the Gambia. So for us to fight that, we must actually try to see how can we produce what we actually consume in this country. And that's actually going to reduce the dependence on the foreign exchange to be able to import these things. You know, Ali, for a very long time, you go anywhere, all of us, even water, we have to import. We have seen that. And we have companies, water companies actually in the country. Why do we have to actually import water into this country? I cannot understand.
Simple interesting when we have
I can't understand. And we have a lot of poultry. No, seriously, we have a lot of poultry that are coming into the country. Exactly. And we have women that actually have big poultry farms. And we have young Gambians that actually have poultry farms. They produce eggs, they produce chicken. Why do we still continue to have to import chicken and stuff like that? And what's going to happen is going to cause a constraint on our foreign exchange. For me, I mean, ban the importation of water, point blank. We have the water in here. We have water company in the Gambia here. Why do you have to bring a bottle of water from outside the Gambia? For what? You know, those basic things. And above all, also, we must look at the institutions or the company we have to give our SIC, which is the Special Investment Certificate. I mean, you give them money, you give them tax havens to be able to invest in this country. And there are requirements. And the requirements are like the kind of investment that you have to go and make, the kind of employment you have to go and make, and above all, the impact you're going to have on the economy of the Gambia here. We need to be checking those, whether what they intended to do, actually they're doing or not. If they don't, they have to go back and pay taxes. Because we cannot be creating tax havens and nobody's going back to check on them.
And now let's look at the issue of the budget implementation, budget execution. As lawmakers, you have a huge role to play in terms of monitoring the level of implementation. I went through a report, prepared by the Library and Research Department of the National Assembly, published in March of this year. It reports that in 2018, 96% implemented. 2019, 91%. 2020, 81%. 2021, 88%. 2022, 92%.
Yeah, and this is where we have a problem. I think our budget needs to be balanced. To be very much honest with you, this will continue to come if we are not very much careful with our investment of the budget, the investment into the productive sector. You see, there is this problem. If you look at the PE alone in 2023, it's about 6.1 billion. But it's helping the high cadre. It's not balanced as expected. So when you come to the implementation per se, whatever we are collecting, the greater component percentage goes to the PE. But what are we doing in the development? And secondly, the 2020 and 2021, 2022, we have serious problem. Because the implementation will not be accurate, because that's where we have the realistic nature of our budget. Because what has been forecast was not realized. And that is why you have that decline. And that is a problem. So if I want to do X, Y, and Z, and I have my plan, the first quarter, this is what I will do. That first quarter pass, I'm unable to do it. Probably the ministry can bounce back during the second quarter or the third quarter. But if this did not come, especially I look at that of agriculture in 2021 and 2022, there is huge decline. And even they were complaining, especially some of their subvention institutions, including the NARI, that does all the research component.
That's the National Agriculture Institute.
In fact, every little thing you have to take it to Senegal, costing us a lot of money. So we're thinking of, in fact, we have to equip the laboratory. And thank God this time, we have approved what we call soil fertility mapping. And this is coming with a lot of equipment in order to prepare them. Because we have the people that the human resource is there, but why are we not providing these things?
And now
this should be a priority area.
Exactly. And Honorable, now, how do we avoid spending more than we earn? I mean, the way government, expenditure in government institutions. I mean, some people will say, okay, why not we cut down the travels? I mean, we know as we speak, there's travel ban. I mean, for non-statutory meetings. I'm not sure whether the National Assembly is affected by the travel ban.
Oh, of course.
Right, every time I was like, are you part of the travel ban?
Yes, actually, we are all part of it because it's one state.
Could this be one way to at least
Actually, for me, when you look at the travel actually itself, you are talking about maybe about 200 million something. But I think what component we really need to look at is how do we increase our revenue as a government. This is fundamental. Because the thing is, you cannot spend what you don't have. Because if you want to do that, which means you have to go and borrow money. And that's why we are in a deficit. Which means our total expenditure, Aliu, once we start collecting, the first thing is to think about is the salaries and allowances that we pay to the population, to the staff of government. And number two also is the debt interest, and number three is the principal. So those three things actually is a given that when we have money, you have to go pay for those. Which means the salaries you have to pay, the debt you have to pay, the principal both and the interest. That's paid, and then the rest actually is like this other requiring things.
I'm talking about increasing the revenue. Are you suggesting that the ministers will also increase taxes?
Not necessarily, but closing the loopholes, because we are aware. Like the example I gave you earlier. If you look at, for example, the government as a whole, in 2016, the total monthly revenue we are collecting at the level of GRA was around 600 million, not more than 700 million. Now we are talking about 1.3 billion. What actually has happened from the past 4 or 5 years? What actually has happened? Which means there was a lot of leakages. Which means technology actually is there to try to close those loopholes. So what I'm saying is like those leakages that we actually have in terms of our revenue collections, we really need to close. And the other one I also gave the minister the last time is the self-raised revenue. We allow institutions to collect revenue on their own, but we need to check whether they are very effective in those collections. So for me, GRA actually may be in a better position to be able to make those collections properly because they have the know-how, they have the technology, and they also have the people to do that. So let's take a look at really whether those institutions we are allowing to do self-raised revenues are actually very competent in their collection or they are very efficient. And then we can move those to towards GRA. But overall, I think number one we need to look at is like how do we decentralize our revenue generation, and that goes to domestic resource mobilization. That actually goes another area in terms of even domestic tourism can also help. Now, when the tourists come in here, like I mentioned the last time in Parliament, I mean, they come to Gambia for what? Just to smile, just because of we smile? Yeah. No, they come for something. That is not only about the cost that we actually have, not about only the food that we actually have, but also they must also be treated in a way. For example, they can have amusement parks and etc. etc. And again, like I always say, let's look at the King West National Park. When some tourists come in here, the Gambia, then they leave Gambia to go to Nyokolokoba or to go to other sites in Senegal, Cap Skirring in Senegal. Why can't we try to create those things in our own country here?
Diversify the products that we sell.
So we must diversify the products, particularly the products in the tourism industry. We need to diversify. We need to ensure that when tourists come, there is no need for them to leave Gambia to go to Bissau or to go to Senegal, because of what they're looking for those areas we actually have. And again, those amusement parks, we need to develop so that we can actually increase the revenue base of the government. So for me, generally, we need to increase the revenue base of government, and then we move.
We're running out of time.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at the budget, as the law stands.
I want to react.
Okay, just quickly, as the law stands, you have only 14 days to deal with all these things. I understand you brought in a private member's bill in Parliament to amend that, and now to give you at least 3 months to be able to scrutinize
2 months.
The budget.
2 months,
2 months. Honorable.
I think that will really help us because any time we have this budget before us, it should be a moral responsibility for us to go and have a discussion with our people. Because the budget is for the electorates, which is very, very key.
I think it should be called the Bowes Law.
Exactly, because what is happening?
For posterity. Bowes Law. And then whoever comes will say, oh.
Anyway, anyway, I think that was a very good decision. Yeah. Normally, sometimes people are scared of coming out with a private member bill, whether we are going to, but what he did,
but
it was unanimous.
Private members bill. Yeah. Jawara also brought one for the area councils.
No, but that was heatedly debated.
Exactly, yes.
In fact, that one, it was not a smooth sailing as what Mbo did. For Mbo, it was a smooth sailing, unanimously agreed.
100%.
100%. So it is always difficult if you want to bring in such amendment because of the polarization, and that's a problem. But one thing he talked about as a country, we are going forward, looking at this thing. Individually, sometimes if this is stable within these 14 days, after the retreat, you go and do your own research, consult some people that have the expertise to discuss what is embedded here, so that you can react. But sometimes if you come with these ministries, he was with FPAC, sometimes you do certain cutting, like foreign affairs ministry, because the foreign service is very expensive. Last year, three embassies were created, German, Japan, and Sweden. But what is allocated cannot even take them from, cannot even start.
Yeah, last year their budget was 2.95% of the budget.
Exactly.
So, foreign affairs.
Foreign affairs. So there's a problem. You go to certain areas, you look at it, they cannot even move. Especially, you have an embassy that is overseeing certain areas. Movement becomes a problem. And you'll be surprised, even in Guinea-Bissau, a country has been built. But go and look at it. In fact, as a committee, we want to go and look at the status. Nobody has entered. It started leaking left and right. You cannot even understand. So, and there is a fundamental problem with procurement in this country too. Who do we give projects to? And these are problems. They will go and implement it the way they like, and there is no repercussion for it.
That's where the issue of the value for money comes in.
This is where we have a problem. This is where we have a problem. You have famous people that owns the country, because every bit of procurement they are going to win it. So sometimes you will be skeptical whether there is no conspiracy.
So, Honorable, some will suggest then why not we have one central project coordinating unit than having all these ministries having their central project coordinating unit.
That has been my suggestion.
Before you react to your bill.
No, actually, that has been my suggestion all along in Parliament. In the first legislature, in the fifth legislature, I told the former Minister Mambure, I said, look, for me, the way I see it, I think we must have one central project, coordinating unit. For me, it doesn't make any sense. You have one for the Minister of Health, one for the Minister of Finance, and also Minister of Agriculture. I said, what? I said, you know what? Let's have a very formidable team that was going to man the project coordinator of the country itself, where we have monitoring and evaluation. You see, there's one aspect of our development, which is monitoring and evaluation, that we really don't pay attention to. And I think it's going to be key that we have those things there. For me, let's go for one PCU, where we have very effective, very efficient monitoring and evaluation officers, where they can actually look at every aspect of every project we're actually doing. But above all, Aliu, I think there's one area also that I needed to mention here, which is actually in our projects. He mentioned about procurement. I remember a few years ago, I had the opportunity to talk to the former president of Ghana. And one question I asked him was like, if you were to be the president of Ghana again, what would you do differently? So there is something he told me. But the second aspect he told me was about public procurement. He told me, when you go back, and so you take a look at your public procurement. He said governments across the world, not only Africa, actually are losing millions, hundreds of millions or billions in public procurement, and we need to take a look at that. Now, for me, when you look at the construction industry in this country, I'm not, I don't want to say like I'm nationalistic, I like development, I like people coming to the Gambia, but let's look at actually road construction in this country here. How many Gambian companies actually have been awarded contracts to develop road construction in this country? Let's look at it. From Banjul here, all the way to URR. I'm talking about those ones that are actually done by the Gambia government itself. Hundreds of billions that are actually spent. Now, for me, we have the National Roads Authority. Why can't we develop the National Roads Authority, where we make them a key partner in the development of all the road construction in this country here? Why do we have to take billions and billions to give it to foreign companies, where they will do the work, exchange that into foreign currencies, which actually makes our country very expensive and take the money out of this country? For me, I think it's fundamental.
It's quite interesting. I understand we're running out of time. But Honorable, finally, the issue of young people, the Ministry of Youth and Sports, their budget. So many people are asking, what is the problem with the budget when it comes to young people? We have seen so many young people perishing in search of greener pasture in Europe.
To be very much honest with you, this country is not very much serious about the young people. We have a problem, because there is one thing we need to understand. There is a merger when you come to the young people. It's youth and sport. These are entities that attract a lot of capital investment. Because you look at it, one, unemployment is another biggest problem here. Because people are not very much comfortable, because they feel they are insecure in the Gambia. That is why they are trekking these routes to go out. I live in Brikama. Every Friday, you'll have 6 buses at the jar oil near my compound. They'll be going through the road. And they're very proud. But the problem there is how much, even if you are sending a minister to youth and sport, it's a punishment. Because it's the ministry that attract the lowest allocation. But they will tell you, the youths are taken care of in agriculture, they are taken care of in education and all those stuff. But why not give to a parent ministry where they will access? We have a problem. And even in our sporting aspect, because not every individual is academically sharp in class, notwithstanding you have a skill to survive. That skill can be any of the discipline. Are we prepared? Like, for example, I'm a football enthusiast. I came from the background. Yeah. Interestingly, Sadio Mane was with us in Brikama when I was managing Brikama United. He came to play before he could go to Generation Foot, when he was with Casa Sport. But you look at the type of academics that are there. The Senegalese can connect at any time. Our people are there. The last leading goal scorer from Brikama United is currently in Senegal, looking for another option to go. But why can't we even build those infrastructure? We have to invest in the
I know
sector.
the conversation is quite interesting, but I've been told time is up. Time is up. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the program. Honorable Alaji Mbow, National Assembly member for Upper Salem constituency and Vice Chair of the Finance and Public Accounts Committee. It was good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much, Ali.
And Honorable Lamid Jesane, Brikama South, Chair of the Public Enterprise Committee of the National Assembly. It was good to have you on the program as well.
Thank you so much, Aliu. I want to seize this opportunity to thank all the viewers in and outside the country, particularly the peace-loving people of Brikama South.
Thank you so much. And Upper Salem as well. And of course, Jara is where I come from. Well, viewers, with that, we bring an end to this week's edition of your weekly State of Affairs program. I was your host, Aliu Sise. Do join us next week. But if you miss any of our episodes, do go to YouTube, where you can visit our YouTube channel at QTV Gambia to watch this edition and our previous edition. On behalf of the production team and everyone here at QTV, thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.